Hello, my name is Bryant Hunt. Today is the 23rd day of May, 2022, that is. My title of my talk today is going to be called The Intellect Kills, but Imagination Gives Life. I think this is very simple, but yet critical for people to understand, and how we, for example, simply is that we have to give description of something. So that's part of our intellect. We have to give names to the animals, so to speak. So if you follow what I'm saying, with Adam, when he chose, or the gods told him to name the animals, it wasn't God. You will notice that it's in plural, and it's not in the beginning. It's just a beginning. In other words, it's a beginning of another age, so to speak. And you'll notice it probably has to do, we can go back and look at which is from the Bible perspective. If you look at it in a different type of interpretation, you'll notice that simply there is, in a certain part of the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, you'll see what they call burnt offerings. Okay, you'll notice that a big deal in the latter part of the Bible, that is in the Old Testament. And that's referring to Aries. It's about fire. So it's talking about an age that they were in. That means the age that they were in was an Aries deal. Okay. And you go maybe further back, or maybe you see at this other age. You do remember the age of what we call the bull. They were worshiping, the Israelites were worshiping the bull. So is that referring to Taurus, the age of Taurus? So I'm just sharing with you some things. But what I want to talk to you about is something that I've learned from a gentleman who actually is from Australia. His name is Arthur Christian, and I see it differently. I'm seeing it different in a lot of ways, and how the intellect, we have to give description to it. We have to give support to it. We have to create what I call a fictitious world. It's not the real world, folks. Do you understand that? Well, this is how your eyes will be open if you actually see this. Everything that's written on paper, like laws, rules, are fictitious. If you understand natural law comes from yourself. It's who you are. Rules and regulations and laws are about intellect, about a fictitious world. It's a way of actually, how would I say this in a way that can help you to understand? Jesus talks about something that eventually their eyes would be open. I believe that time is now. I believe that it's time that your eyes will be open. You will realize simply is we're living in a fictitious world. We're living in what I call the law of the sea, SEA. It's about commerce. It's about money. You see, it's all about making money. And usually it's to benefit those at the very top. When you had what we call the law of the land, a different perspective, it was a perspective simply is that you took care of yourself. You were responsible for yourself, and you also bartered with your neighbors, and you were able to exchange things for each other. Okay, just very simple stuff here. This is what we got to go back to, in a way. Okay, this whole economic system is going to have to fall, and it will fall, folks. It's going to fall. And that gives us the opportunity to seize the day. That's what this is all about. Now, I'm going to come, I explained this in an earlier video today. I've actually done a 2-hour video with some friends today. What I want to share with you now is how that intellect has created this whole perspective. Because let's go back to when you were children, or if you can't remember that, you have children, and you see that they are in their essence. They're pure. The child is pure. Do you understand that? Do you understand that the child is in one with the universe around it? Do you follow what I'm saying here? It's critical for you to understand that child is in not a duality, not a duality, folks. It's not a duality. Not then, not yet. It's one with nature. It's not caught up in names. Like, for example, how parents tell you, oh, that's a butterfly. Oh, well, that's the color yellow over there. The daffodils are yellow. What's that got to do with anything, folks? That's the intellect. The intellect has to describe something. It has to give names. What does that benefit? You see, the whole idea simply is that you have to have, for me or others, you have to have a book. You see, you got to have a book. That's the intellectual knowledge. It's a way of helping you. So this is how, and there's nothing wrong with that, except it's a tool that actually gets you caught in the web. So the intellect itself is a clever way for you to lose yourself. That you once was a baby and you were perfect. And you knew that within the child, that is the baby, understood that it was perfect. It never had a separation with the world or this duality perspective that, oh, I'm this and this is something else. That's duality. That's the clever way of how you then separate yourself from your whole world, that is the world around us. It's very clever how how parents have been deceived in thinking that they have to describe certain things. If you remember, I've never gotten married, but I can remember this. You remember this? This is what they do for children, as though, they're to get their. See, people are trying to get the attention of that child, as that baby's in the crib, okay? And this makes noise. So, okay, this gets their attention, such and such. Which in reality simply is, that's not what you want to do. You see, because they already are fulfilled in what they are. Jesus spoke about this simply is, let the children come unto me. What was he speaking of? He was basically speaking of, it's not talking about a literal interpretation. In a way it is, but not. It's meaning simply, you're not divided. That's what he's speaking of. You're not divided. You're a child of God, you see. And so the whole idea simply is, you're not divided. You're in your own essence of who you are. Do you see that? This is how what the teachings of Jesus was about. Is not on the literal terms. This is what those who are in cloth and black robes and whatever you want to call it are deceiving you. They deceived you. They deceive you, and simply is that they create. See, this is the whole dimension of God. You see, well, there's a God out there. He's going to save you. Then that means you're divided. Do you not see that? You are already complete. It says in Psalms simply, you are wonderfully and fearfully made. God did, if we're going to call it creator or God, whatever, I should say creator. But anyway, God is a misnomer in some ways. But creator, he didn't make any mistakes, folks. Somewhat, what a baby, if you do it in a proper way, you don't have it in a hospital. That's another deception. You see, that's how trauma is introduced to that child, especially with circumcision. Hey, gamer, how you doing? Yes, they did push it. I went to university. Yes, no doubt about it. In colleges, and I also went to seminary, although I did not complete seminary. That's another story. But anyway, good to see you. The whole idea simply is, but the whole idea also I'm talking about is family. They've already caused that child to also begin to pull away and actually doesn't see itself in a oneness. That's the scary part. That's what's the so sad part. I talked to a lady who lives in Italy, a very bright individual, has a desire to do what's right. And she could give me emphasis that the crib itself is a danger. In other words, the crib separates it from the parent. the mama. You see this? How, did you see the dimensions here that's going on here? How we've been deceived with a child and the mom. You know, the other thing simply is when I grew up, my mom, you know, I didn't see my mom's breasts. Okay. My mom didn't feed me milk from the breast. She fed me milk from a cow. So she put it in a container to warm it and then put it in a bottle. See how clever man is? But it's deception, you see. It's all deception. And, you know, we can go, you can look at Janice Marcella's site, how it's important that you actually have your children at home instead of actually in a hospital. A hospital creates trauma, immense trauma for the child. It separates the parents from the child itself. It actually, okay, here's a question. Why is a child put in a certain area? Why is it separated from its mom and dad? Oh, well, that's because it doesn't want to get germs. There is no such thing as, there is a germ, yes, but it doesn't affect you. This is what people don't understand. You don't get sick because of germs. You get sick because you are actually eating bad things and you need to detox yourself. That is, eliminate that. That's why they speak of fasts. You fast. You don't eat for some period of time so your body can eliminate that toxics that are in your body. It's that simplistic, but that's not talked about anymore. You see, it's not a way simply as people understand these things. They're bought into whole system mentality everywhere around us. And so, going back to the intellect, it kills, and imagination gives life. Yes. By the descriptions you give things, you kill that child's imagination because it's already in its own world. It actually, basically, if I would be graphic in some ways, it loves its poop. It doesn't care. You see, I mean, that's how that doesn't have that. Again, it hasn't had that knowledge. Such, oh, it's a bad thing. Such. Oh, I do it when I have to do it. So, you know, and it's a way that people, you know, well, my poop doesn't smell, such and such. You know, just think about that. It doesn't seem that that's not the interest of that child. But I understand simply you have to clean up. I understand that part, and that's part of learning things too. So I understand basically from 1 to 3, and what happens with a child simply is that it's the time for them also that they're in their essence. But if there's enormous trauma in a family, like mama and daddy are not getting along, or that child is what I call, as I was presenting to you from this lady from Italy, she was describing that the children sleep with her. Okay, so the children sleep with her, so that provides what we call protection for that child. When you put that child in a crib, you are saying you're on your own. So these are little techniques or things that women could do to protect their children so they don't feel insecure. And daddy is not around at that point, folks. Daddy is in his own bedroom, okay? He's not sleeping with mama, okay? This is where, again, all this intellect stuff that's come along in the last 60, 70, 80 years here has basically destroyed families. And what I mean by that simply is that why would you need a crib? You know, when was the crib invented? Well, I think it was invented basically in the 1880s or 1890s to separate the child from the mom. The mom itself said it wasn't convenient enough to have the children in bed with me. So let's put them in a crib. And that crib, if you look at it in some ways, that child is in that crib. What does that crib look like? Looks like a prison to me, doesn't it? Doesn't it? When you come down to the children's level and look at that, be laying down and looking around and seeing all this stuff, and you see these bars around you, is that also some type of psychological operation in some ways, what we're doing to our kids? Is that creating security, or is that creating insecurity in that child? You see, that's why mama needs to sleep with the kids. That's the whole deal. That's why mama needs to, quote unquote, have breast milk with those children. It's also involved in, if you have your children home, you would have the placenta with the child, which is actually beneficial for the child protection. It's all there. It was a creation. It's all there. And we've disregarded and said, As doctors or educations come on, well, you don't need that. Just clip this off and da-da-da. The umbilical cord is not important right now. It's already been taken care of, da-da-da. This is how the programming is going on with children and mama and daddy. And I've kind of gotten off point here, but my point simply is that imagination is the creation, the imagination creating things, not naming things. So the child, in some ways, when you come along and say, hey, that's a bird, that's a bluebird. Well, what you've done is this. This is what you've done. You created a dead entity. That's what you've done. You've given it a name. And when you gave it a name, you intellectualize it. And so when children are fascinated at first with all this stuff, and then when they get into what I call the schooling system, whatever, they give names to these animals, birds, whatever. And suddenly it destroys their imagination. It's done for a reason, folks. It's done for a reason. There's no doubt about it. That's why you need to have your children at home, you see, in a protected environment. So the child grows up in a secure environment. So it doesn't feel insecure when it's put in a crib. These are all modern techniques or modern conveniences for mama. But in reality, simply, mama should understand simply this. If she wants secure children, she should have the kids in the bed with her asleep at night because they're afraid of the dark. Okay? So mommy is giving security to those babies, there's boy or girl, whatever it is. Mama's also saying, I'm sufficient enough to give you my breast milk. You see, not all people can do this, but most women can. If they're healthy, if they're eating right, they can actually, the boy or girl can actually drink mama's milk. That's what it's for, folks. I mean, it's just like we're looking, what do you think women have breasts? Is it to do with attraction? No. In that regard, no. Maybe so when you basically fall in love with a woman, yes. But most men, think about this, if most men are quote unquote attracted to women's breasts, why is that? Maybe it's because the first thing that his mama did was breastfeeding. And so that's why men are attracted to women's breasts. Do you ever think about that? Think about it. You see, that's what's going on here. It's nothing bad about it. So it's almost as though we become brain dead. And so we just say, okay, a woman has breast milk, but we can buy milk here and warm it up and put it in and give it to you. So for convenience. When in reality, it's not convenient. Okay, you have to go and pour the milk out of a jug and then warm it up, and then you have to make sure it's just right for that child to be able to drink it, so it doesn't burn its mouth. Okay, when it's too hot. When mama's milk is not that way. Isn't it amazing how we've been dumbed down, so to speak? So again, this is this whole intellectual knowledge. We have these scientists and doctors. Well, why is that? Well, we can sell more milk. That's that. We can sell milk for the family now. When in reality, a cow's milk is for a cow. Mama's milk is for a child, a baby. I'm not trying to put down women. That's not the perspective here. Most women they just did what they were told, such and such, or that's what they knew. But the whole idea simply is we need to change the paradigm. We need to move away from all this. We need to understand simply is when we make the step to move away from this, we're saying we're getting out of this fictitious world. And so let the child itself, and now I have a website I could actually offer for you here to share. Let me share this something to you because I think it's important to look into. Let's see if I can find it here for you. Okay, I had it up here earlier today, so I'll have to pull it up. It's called, let's see, cancel that part here. So what it's called is School Sucks Project. So I'll go to that deal here for you. And then what I'll do is go back to the share deal here. And then I'll show you the website. So this is it here. It's called School Sucks Project, and it's a liberating learning project, such and such. And what it's trying to do simply is that you teach your own children. But it's also talking about what I talked about earlier, that you actually let the child learn on its own. Meaning simply is that it's unschooling. It's a whole different process of let the child learn on its own way, so they can understand and is connected to the living things around it. And that's why when we say tree, we should actually use the word living tree, because everything around us is living. Everything here is beneficial for ourselves if we would just take the time and be in that presence of mind or presence to realize that and to actually glean the wisdom of that, you see. And so that's part of the whole deal here is with trying to share with you simply is that you need to understand, or to understand, I guess would be a better word, that what is taking place within you. Let me go ahead and let me drop this piece of information also down here in here so people can see it later on, so that people have later come see the video, they can actually see this. So this is the website here. School Sucks Project here. Okay, so it's opened up. So that'll help you guys out. And I won't go any much longer because I've already done a 2-hour video. But the point simply is that it's important that you understand simply is when you give names or descriptions. So everything in the fictitious world is dependent upon what I call a book or something written down. And laws are differently. Laws are written down on a piece of paper, and they're third person, because the laws have been done without you being there at that time. See, that's why we have notary publics. Is something you have someone witness your signature as to give evidence that someone witnessed that signature. Well, why would you have to do that? You see, why would you have to do that? Because the entity, the words, the book, whatever's written in the law is dead. It's totally dead. So they try to breathe life into the paperwork by simply giving a notary public and having someone witness that. You see how you've been deceived? Little clever things you say, you have to ask yourself, let me be curious about these things, and why is this happening? Why would you need a public, someone to see you witness it? Isn't that enough to who you are? No. You see, that's how they work in this fictitious world. Everything is ass backwards. Do you understand? Just that whole perspective here. So what we want is something, and this is like a kind of way of a tool for you to think about, is to imagine what you want to see. That's part of dreams in your lives, and that's how you make reality. Whatever your dreams are, you work towards those dreams to see them become reality. But it's part of what we call, you imagine these things in your dreams, your life, what you want, who you want to marry, or what type of house you want to live in, or what you would like to do for the rest of your life, such and such. Well, that part of that's imagination. And then you have a dream, and then you put energy into that particular dream, and then you see the fruits of that dream. You see. So I just wanted to share this little video here to remind people simply is that the intellect itself, intelligence itself, and I would suggest simply is if you're going to teach anybody or whatever, part of the problem also is to do with this, that people who are involved in teaching, that is in colleges and universities, they're not working for your child per se, or your thinking teenager when you get older. They're working for the system. They're producing a good, able-bodied student that will promote a system that continues it on. That's what it's about. See, do you follow what I'm saying here? So what's happening here is that the child he's going to grow up such and such and be such and such, but the university makes money off of the either parents or that child in order to pay for that knowledge, in order for him to have a job in a fictitious system that is actually destructive for all of life, period, around us. Think about that. Think about how you pay money to get a degree in college, and I have a degree in Bachelor's of Arts. You don't know these things when you're younger. So that's why I'm trying to give you this information and wisdom so that you won't make those same mistakes that I made, okay? So that you can actually be in nature and actually can learn from nature and to respect and honor life, all life, per se, instead of doing damage to whatever out there. You see, part of the other illustration I'm going to share with you is most people are clueless in what they're doing. They don't understand they're actually destroying the planet. Now, the planet's not going to be destroyed. What I mean by that simply is that Mother Earth is not going to allow that to happen, per se, because that's not going to continue on. And that's what's happening now, all the earthquakes and stuff like that. There's a reason why the mom, or whatever you want to call it, Gaia, whatever you want to call the word, is a way of saying, excuse me, you're not going to get away with this. This is earthquakes and all kinds of bad weather. It can cause damage to certain places because basically they're saying this is not peaceful. What man is doing is doing harm. So creation won't go away. But this is how, when you think about this, and this is for people who examine and see this, it's very clear, as how developers come in and they've got some land here. Let's say they got some acres, let's say 10 or 15 acres or whatever. And what they do is simply they build a subdivision. And in the past, what they've done, they would just simply build a house in a certain area and move would cut down certain trees that were going to be in the path or in the area of where the house is going to be. Okay. But the rest of the area was the trees were left. That was in the 60s and 50s and 70s, even probably in the 80s. But the program now is completely is now when the developers come in, they just mow it all down. They just completely tear it all down. What are you doing? What are you doing? Hello? Anybody up there? No? Anything up here? Because that's what you're doing. You're depending upon you. Well, I want to do this. Well, yeah. But what you're doing is you're destroying life in that whole neighborhood you're going to build. See how far we've gone? We've gone, even when the 60s in some ways is not right, but at least it didn't, quote unquote, tear down everything. Now they just simply mow it all down. And then when they come in back, they put these little trees out there. There's little ones that are actually what I call very small. And they're cute. The reality simply is, what kind of animal can live on a little tree like that? What kind of bird can fly into that, such and such? See what's going on here? Oh, I'm being good. I put down what's called a small tree. I'm being good to nature, such and such. No, you're not. You should have never tore them down in the first place. So, okay, guys, thank you for being here, gamer. They always push duality in colleges. Well, that's part of the intellect. That's part of the whole intellect, whole perspective. If you look at the whole board of, like we said earlier today, when you look at the board of masonry, and masonry is not all bad. Some of it's bad. But the whole idea simply is a black-white checkerboard or a chessboard. And like we said earlier, simply is this creates duality. And that's what they want. And that's what I'm trying to point out simply is that when you're a child, you don't want to produce that duality. You want that child to stay in its essence as long as it can, because that provides security for that child. And that child can be someone who could have an enormous amount of impact upon society because it's not divided. You see, its eyes are open. The veil is down. It can see. You see. Okay. Have a great day. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you another time.